Hey, it's Barry, and over the last 25 years, I've been asked constantly, why aren't there more black real estate investors? And now, why aren't there more black real estate developers? I just think there's just not enough people looking, willing to roll up their sleeves and understand what it takes to be an investor, and especially a black investor or developer in today. So stick around, I'm going to talk to you and tell you why.
Your source for profit. Hear what you need to know to succeed in today's real estate market.
So today I'm going to play a video that I kind of critiqued in my last live broadcast a couple days ago. And this one involves the guys over at earnyourleisure.com, and they're talking to a up-and-coming black real estate developer in the Houston area. So I'm going to play a little bit of what he says, and I'm going to critique it, and we'll talk along as it goes. But it explains a lot of what I have felt and experienced in the real estate business as a black real estate investor. So let's go ahead and take a look at that video.
For me, it's just like I want to do something bigger. And so as I continued to flip, I started realizing, you know, this narrative about gentrification happens over and over and over. And I was like, man, I know a few of us that are flipping. I don't know anybody that's really trying to get into the development game and you know, kind of change the narrative so we have some control over that. So
I have heard that many times over the last 25 years, and I can tell you firsthand that most of the people involved in real estate investing have been out there trying to make a quick buck. There are very few guys that I know who have been in there 5 years. Fewer still, the number of guys who have been there 10 years. Fewer still, the guys who have been in the game for 20 years. There's a reason for that. It takes a lot of work and a lot of perseverance. So let's continue.
2013, that's when I decided to kind of get off into that.
So were you buying land in 2013? Was that the next step?
I didn't know what I was going to buy. I just knew what I was going to do is stop flipping and try to figure it out. Okay. So I just started talking about it, and man, it came full circle. My same line brother that helped me get into the game, he had an old tenant reach out to him that used to be in one of the properties and say, hey, I'm over here in 5th Ward, and the landlord over here isn't taking care of the property. I think he's on drugs. And so, you know, what he heard was opportunity.
That's the word. You have to be scaling your community constantly. Put the head on a swivel. Recognize where opportunity exists. You're driving through a neighborhood and the grass is high, possible opportunity. You're driving through the neighborhood and you see blue tarps on the roof and there hasn't been a major storm in years, probably an opportunity. You see mail sticking out of a mailbox that hasn't been picked up in quite some time, potential opportunity. In this regard, Chris saw or knew of someone who owned some land, thought the guy might have been on drugs, thought to himself, hey, this might be some opportunity.
So he reached out to me and he's like, man, I think we got an opportunity to go pick up a few houses over here. So I went to go meet with the guy, ended up being a whole block. He had a grocery store on it.
How much was that?
Okay.
So, this guy stepped into an amazing opportunity. Once in a while, that will happen. If you position yourself correctly as the authority in the market, deals like this will come upon you. You're going out there just to check something out, and the next thing you know, you're stepped into it, as Chris just said, an opportunity that's much bigger than what you thought. I can tell you a story. I once went to a house to try and buy the house from the people who were in foreclosure. Scott's honor. By the time I left that home, the people had simply signed over the deed and handed me the keys and just said, we're done. True story. You never know what the opportunity is going to be until you get there.
True story. At the time, this was in the hood. It wasn't worth nothing. It was probably worth $300,000 the whole block.
The whole block, the entire block.
Everything was kind of run down. But it's in the area where you tell somebody I'm about to go spend $300,000, they're like, man, are you crazy?
Right. It's the hood.
You know, it's the hood. Yeah, nothing but drugs and prostitution over there. You're gonna waste your money. You know. So what I ended up doing to talk him into doing the deal, I offered him $400,000 for it.
That's what I've been saying. That's what's going to set you apart as a real estate investor, black or white. I don't want this just to be of value to black potential real estate investors. Understand this, even if you are a white real estate investor. There's money for all of us. See, what he did was he knew the value of the property. He knew the deal. He knew he had to have that deal. So did he come in and try to lowball the guy and give him an offer for $200,000? No. He gave him $100,000 more than what he was asking for. People think, oh man, that's crazy. He didn't get a good deal. No, he had a vision. He knew where he was going. And sometimes it works out. If you give and take on price, the seller will give and take on terms, but you have to know what you're looking for. So listen to what he says here.
So, but of course I didn't have the cash to pay $400,000. So he actually had inherited the property from his dad. His dad was like a real estate tycoon. Had like 26 blocks over there.
26 blocks.
26 blocks.
Whoa.
26 blocks. And this block happened to be the one that they gave this kid, and he was like the horrible kid. You know what I mean?
He botched it.
Yeah, yeah. So so this was the one he had, and he still wasn't taking care of it. So I offered him an owner finance scenario.
Okay, this is really important what you're about to hear. He acknowledged, hey, listen, I offered this guy $400,000. I don't have $400,000. There's no way I'm going to be able to pay for it, but I'm going to put the deal together. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. If you put the deal together, then you can work on the money afterwards. I get constant information and emails from people looking to get into my deals. Some are viable, some are not. Investors have different criteria. They depend on where they want to go with a deal. But the idea behind it is knowing what the deal is and how you can structure it. So let's continue here.
Where I was like, I'll give you 10% now.
What's owner finance?
So that's when instead of going to the bank, the owner that actually doesn't have any debt on the property will let you make payments over time to buy the property from him. So I gave him 10% of what we agreed to, the $400,000, so $40,000, which came from me selling one of my rental properties.
So you may not have 10% down. You may not have flipped a couple properties already, and you don't have 10%. You don't have $40,000 to put on a $400,000 property. But that's where it gets fun. That's when you start rolling up your sleeves, picking up the phone, knocking on doors, talking to investors, and instead of having to raise $400,000, now you only have to raise 40. You just knocked off 90% of your work. You just have to get this part. You don't have to get the whole 400,000. You got to get 10%. You want to get 40 grand. And I'm telling you right now, Scout's honor again. Don't even know if I did that right. If your deal is good, the money's going to be there. Absolutely.
And then that allowed me now to control that whole block of property. In 2016, redevelopment kind of started in the area.
So understand what he just said. Control the block. He controlled the block. What that means is he went to contract. Once you get the seller to sign the contract, you control the block. You control the property. You control the house. You control the duplex. Nothing can happen in that window that you've set out in the contract to purchase the property. You're probably going to have a 10-day inspection period. You're going to have a couple of different clauses that have to be met. But during that period of time, you've locked it up. Normally, you're going to have a 10 or 15-day, inspection period. Then you're going to have a 30 to 45-day closing period. I hate this microphone, this headphone. You're going to have that period of time. During that 30 or 45 days, or at least during that 10 days, because you don't want to lose your deposit if you can't close, you need to go find that money. So it's ideal to have people lined up in advance. You need to find your private investors, your private lenders, and say, listen, hey, bud, if I find a deal that meets this criteria, will you come in with it? Come in with me. And make sure that you get that, and the person is serious. Show them the kind of deals you're looking at, driving around the neighborhood. Do what you need to do. But that 10% is all you're going to need.
That I was in. Something else that I always watch too, even when I was flipping, is what the city's plans were. And you can go to the planning department's website, and it'll tell you what they're planning to do 5 years, 10 years down the road. And that's a lot of the game that we don't pay attention to.
And he's exactly right. And that doesn't matter. That's color agnostic. Black, white, doesn't matter. Unless you're in the game and you know what to look for, you don't know what's coming. You don't know what a city has lined up for the next 4 or 5 years. But it's all free. Just spend a day down in City Hall and look at the planning and zoning department. Find out what their 5-year plan is. A lot of them will post it online. So, you may step into a deal that nobody has really checked that you're talking to. So if you know that Walmart is looking to open up down the street, then pretty much you know that the houses that don't know about it, you might be able to overbid somebody because of what the value of that property is going to be. It's just being smart.
But the other groups pay attention to that.
Where can you find that information at?
Usually you can just Google it, like planning and development department or urban planning for whatever city you're in, and it'll pull up on their website. It's usually a .gov type website. And it'll have all their information. A lot of it's talked about at city council meetings, so you can look up city council meeting minutes, and it'll tell you about anything big, any developer that's proposing to do something in a certain area. All that has to be publicly announced. So, but what I noticed about Houston was that everything was going counterclockwise around downtown, and the Fifth Ward neighborhood that I was buying in was the last quadrant. So
see what he did there? He knew where the development was happening currently and where it was headed. He said it was moving counterclockwise, and eventually it was going to come around to the area that he already owned. So he was sitting on a gold mine. He knew that because he had done his homework.
Oh, I knew eventually it was going to come. I just didn't know when, And so, so that's how I got into it. And 2016, another guy started building, so then I figured it was time for me to try to figure out how to get it done.
So what's your philosophy on gentrification? How do you feel about that?
So gentrification has a very negative connotation in our community because we are never the ones revitalizing that neighborhood. And what happens is the people that are revitalizing are looking out for themselves.
You mean making a profit? Gentrification is one of those words that they toss around out there to make you feel bad about making money. You're going into a neighborhood that's crap. I mean, there's some areas here in South Florida, and we all know them, that nobody wants to touch. But given the opportunity, we can get in there and redevelop these neighborhoods. We could turn them into places people actually want to live, and then watch what happens afterwards. That the neighborhoods inevitably turn to profit centers.
Their own groups. It's not that they don't care about us, is that they have their own personal agendas that they're moving forward. And so we can either continue to watch it happen or we can participate, right? And we can participate in a way that we kind of control the narrative of what's being built, who it's being built for, and what happens to the surrounding community that we're.
So that's a key thing he said. You can walk around with a upset look on your face, you can protest, you can scream, or you can participate. So you tell me, so far, what you've seen is something that you can't do, that there's a barrier that you can't jump over. When I say barrier, we've been talking about this the last couple of days, this systemic racism. There's no such thing. There is no procedure or process that stopped him from buying this property and looking forward to go ahead and redevelop it.
Again, right? So my goal with my project was, most of the time when you hear about black builders in black neighborhoods, it's low income stuff. And I feel like that's great. Like, we do need to look out for the low income people, but we got to attract the people that were successful, the people that made it out those neighborhoods and back to those neighborhoods, because we need that income. We need that demographic if we ever want a grocery store to come back.
So true. So true. When people talk about gentrification, they never talk about the redevelopment of an area. If you watch the riots the last couple of months, and they burned down every place, and they chased Walgreens and CVS and Wendy's out, you need those businesses in the neighborhood. Those businesses are employers. Those employers then have management and people on their way up in life who can afford the developments that we are using and placing into these neighborhoods.
We can't sit and depend on the government to do that. And right now what happens is the people that are successful, they go and buy houses in the suburbs, right? It's not because they don't want to move back, it's because they have no options. So my focus was, well, let me start building some market rate stuff, not low income housing stuff, but try to attract these working professionals back to the neighborhoods with
market rate. Learn that term. Market rate isn't necessarily affordable housing. You can allocate a certain percentage of your development for affordable housing, and you can vet and screen the people to make sure you've got the right people to make that mix happen. But you need people who would prefer to live in the city or the opportunity zone, wherever it is, than move out to the suburbs. In the opportunity zone that I'm looking at here in Delray Beach, we're talking about a area of Delray Beach that's less than 10 minutes from the beach. Building in there is going to attract city dwellers. TikTok, you people from New York, talking to you.
High quality product that they're going to pay the same price they're paying in the suburbs, and in the city your value is going to appreciate a whole lot more, especially when that neighborhood starts to revitalize.
And that's kind of what you've done with the land that you bought in 2013,
right? Which
is the most recent development that you worked on. It's a 14. Is it 14?
Yeah, 14 units.
14 unit
14 individual
townhouses.
Townhouses. Yeah.
Yeah. You want to talk about that? How that came about?
Yeah. So this is the same property that I bought with the grocery store and everything. Okay. So in 2016, I decided to just tear everything down. When I saw there was another developer that was building houses deep in the neighborhood, and he was selling them for $250 before they were complete. He wasn't even listing them on MLS. So
pre-sales, baby. Man, that was fun back in the 2009, 2008 period when we were doing condo conversions. And I just remember back then the fax machine running basically 24/7. We were getting offers on condo conversions left and right. Man, was that the day when I could go to my money people and say, I've got, this thing is sold out. Here are 5 contracts. Here are 10 contracts for $250, $300. This person's 10% down. We're sold out before we even put a shovel in the ground. Before we even graded the land, we were already sold out.
I'm like, so that tells me that there's a mindset. There's enough people out there that are willing to save $100,000 because everything else inside the city loop, was like inside 610 loop, was $350 or more. So, but people would rather save that money and live in a neighborhood that was still pretty rough. So I was like, well, if he can do this deep in the neighborhood, I'm right on the feeder to the highway, I got a view of downtown, I should be able to do something with my property too. And so that's when I decided I'm gonna move forward with this initiative, try to build.
So he's talking about people who prefer to live in the inner city. Now this opportunity zone here in Delray, like I said, is like 10-15 minutes to the beach, but it's a stone's throw from Atlantic Avenue. So all the upward yuppies that want to, they go to work, they're working at the ad agency, they're working, in marketing or retail, and they've got good jobs, but they prefer to be able to just walk to a cafe, to do some shopping locally, just basically ride the bike to the beach. They don't need to live way out west, and so they pay a premium to live where they're comfortable.
These townhouses, and it took a lot of work. It took me building the right team because I had no idea what I was doing. It goes back to what you were talking about earlier with the consultant. I had to find the right team, I had to find a builder that had enough experience that was willing to kind of lend his knowledge and time to me, of course, for a fee. Had to pay him to be my consultant, basically teach me how to do the first project.
So what he said there is probably the most important part of his video, and some people won't even get it. It doesn't cost you anything to get out there and put together a team. You're going to need a team. You're going to need contractors. You're going to need realtors. You're going to need engineers. You're going to need architects. You are going to need to put together this team. Get out there, begin interviewing people, and seeing who it is that you can work with. Find a realtor that's going to help you. That doesn't cost you anything. So you put together your funding and your team before you begin getting involved in all of this.
So what's your plans now as far as how many projects are you working on? Like what's your vision look like for the next 5 years?
Next 5 years, I want to finish this project, which will probably be finished next year, and I want to continue to.
Whoa! Did you guys miss that? Here's a gentleman who's probably 30-ish, and he's putting together his development plan for the next 5 years. Notice I said there's not a whole lot of people in the flipping game here in South Florida who've been around 5, 10, 15, 20 years, is because they didn't do what he specifically is saying right now. They did not put together that 5 and 10 year plan.
Build the same model in the same neighborhood. I kind of want to make this like a real world example that can be duplicated in other cities. Like we can go in, we can buy the land, and I didn't mention my entire team is from the community too. Right. So like my builders, my real estate brokers, my insurance brokers, everybody.
Contractors as well?
Contractors as well, yeah.
That team approach. And trust me, if you're gonna make them money, they're gonna want to be a part of your team.
Yeah, I'm working with a black builder, so, and it's not just anybody, it's people that got good reputations, but we kind of always silo ourselves and we never really collectively work together on stuff. Yeah. So yeah, and the goal, and the most important part of all of this, whether you flipping, another industry a lot of people in is wholesaling or building new construction, is ensuring that you put the product in front of the right end buyer. Because if you flipping, you call yourself buying a block, but if you're not watching who you're selling to on the back end, right, you're still gentrifying the neighborhood. Yeah. So my goal is really to educate us on, like I said, the work.
So I'm going to give you a pro tip here, and I consider myself a pro. What I like to do, you can't really do this in an opportunity zone, but have your realtor run you a report. Have her run you a report, or he run you a report showing the zip codes, the subdivisions with the fastest moving properties. So if Coral Heights is selling properties and the average days on market is under 30, look for properties in there that have been on the market for longer than 30. There's something wrong and there's a deal to be had. If you see another market and the properties are moving with 15, 20 days, put a circle around that subdivision and find out and send information to everybody in that neighborhood. Because you know, if you put something on the market comparable to what is already sold, it's going to move quickly. That's a pro tip, and that's something I've used for 25 years to find properties quickly. Don't wait for them to come on the market. You already know what the pricing is. Just know that market inside out. So if you see a property like the house behind me I'm looking at, I know if it's a 3-2 with a pool, based upon this zip code and subdivision, I can tell you what it's going to be worth. I don't care what it looks like inside, because I know what the top end or ARV, after repaired value, is going to be. So if I know that going in, that's a $500,000, $510,000 house, I can just build everything in, including my profit. So that's just something just to keep on your mind.
Professional on why it's better for you to buy over here. Yeah. So I'm building the first 3 now. Got contracts on 2 of them. Both of them are young black professionals, basically oil and gas professionals.
No, townhouses, right?
Townhouses, yeah. I got a dentist, a black dentist from Dallas that's looking at buying one. You know, so it's all about making sure that we create that model, because right now that gentrification narrative is the only thing that's real. Mm-hmm. And for our people, we do better when we see examples of something that's actually working. And so when this is complete.
There's this thing called the Law of Diffusion of Innovation. I want you to look it up. It's basically a bell curve. And it says that on that bell curve, We are all traveling. But on the front end of that bell curve, the initial 2 to 5% are your early innovators. They're the ones who can see what's coming and they jump in now. What he just says, and has been a problem in the black community, is people always wait to see what happens, and by then it's too late.
Make sure that this model gets as much exposure as possible. It's not about me making all the money. I want people in other cities to do the same thing. You know, to say it's possible. We really can't do this, and this is the example.
How do you evaluate like what area you want to? I know you say you look at the city plans, but do you have like a set formula, or is it just kind of like you just know the area and you just kind of have a good feeling? Because you can buy in some bad neighborhoods and they don't get better, right? So it's like, I mean, how do you know? Like,
now, if you know what you're doing, that will never happen. Never going to happen. Know your farm area. If you go outside your farm area, network with somebody who knows that area. Never go cold into an area. Never go cold into a neighborhood. There are different neighborhoods in Fort Lauderdale that I used to remember, Melrose Park. If something popped up in Melrose Park, just give me the square footage, tell me what it was, the configuration, 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, 2-bath. Just tell me that. I'll tell you what the value of that property was. Coral Heights was another one. Coral Ridge was another one. Imperial Point was one. These are neighborhoods that I considered my farm area. I mean, there were places when I went to dinner in the Coral Ridge neighborhood that people recognized me because they knew I was active in that community. I had mailmen that would bring me deals and say, hey, listen, I got something you might want to check out. If you close this, is there something in it for me? You're damn right there is. Get into your neighborhood, know your neighborhood, and get people to know you.
This is probably going to get better.
It's all about your network, because you got to be talking to people in the industry. So a lot of the realtors that I work with, they work with builders, and you know, you got to have a network of commercial realtors around you too, because they know where the commercial developers are looking at, what areas they're looking at. So it's a lot of it's word of mouth in addition to what you see on the city plans, you know. But yeah, you got to have your foot in the door. You got to be on the inside, understanding where they're moving, and you just kind of ride that wave along with it.
So, networking. There's something out there right now that's a lot of network, you know, social media. Right now they're all on Twitter and Facebook and TikTok and Instagram talking crap and protesting on racism, the systemic racism. It's bullshit. Network with the right people. We're out there. I'm happy to avail myself of someone who needs help. But I expect these people who need help to actually roll up their sleeves and do something. I'm not interested in people who think they deserve reparations. I'm interested in talking to people who understand that there's a tremendous opportunity in front of them. Even more so because of what's going on right now. The opportunity has exploded if you know what you're doing. So I hope you took something away from this video today. And if you have any questions, I'd love to hear from you. Please subscribe, hit the notification bell. I'm going to be doing both my live broadcasts and these one-off videos as well as we begin to saturate South Florida and areas beyond with information about real estate. Thanks for watching.
Your source for profit. Hear what you need to know to succeed in today's real estate market.